Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday. Our title sponsor is Able Auctions. Meanwhile, it being Wednesday, all of our guests, including Jay Pat, standing by, brought to you by the Alberta Power and Marine RPM Group, located in Port Alberni. Alberta Power and Marine is one of Vancouver Island's most trusted boat dealerships, the largest Mercury Marine dealership in Canada. Their service team just won, Rick, for the fourth straight year, a customer satisfaction index score above the national average. That's tough to do. Make your appointment today for the 2022 boating season at albernipowermarine.com. Just ahead of Jeff Paterson, I wanted to get this in. Delaney's OK Tire in Langley inbox from Troy and Victoria. Best part of that Kluche-Lidstrom clip was hearing John Ashbridge in the background. Troy is a stickler for details. I noticed that
so good
as well. The late, great John Ashbridge. As we bring in from Sekeres and Price in the Rink-Wide podcast, as we always do on a Wednesday, Jeff Paterson, how are you, sir?
Good, guys. Was there in the building that night that Nick Lidstrom beat Dan Kluche, and just reliving it there and listening to the play-by-play. And I don't know who the play-by-play voice was. It was ESPN, the clip you ran, but I love the fact that the play-by-play guy says, "Oh, and it skipped past Kluche," and the color guy's like, "No, I think he just
I don't think it skipped."
Yeah, he got beat, and he got beat bad. Were the Canucks going to win that series, Jeff? It was 1-1 late second period.
Yeah, and I remember, didn't Henrik score in overtime in Detroit, I think, in one of the first two games? And they come home up 2-0. I mean, the Red Wings go on to win the Stanley Cup. So that team was stacked. I mean, that was Hull and Robitaille and Yzerman and Shanahan and on it went. And, I mean, maybe if they get the next goal in that game, who knows? You've thrown a big scare into the Red Wings, but a team like the Red Wings, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and obviously that was the break they needed, and there was no looking back.
Yeah, there were other moments in that series other than that one. You're right, I agree with you. Nobody beat the Red Wings that spring. What's impressed you most about the Oilers' run, Jeff?
I suppose that McDavid and his level of play, and Draisaitl, there was questions about his ankle, and there probably still are, and he's fought through that. So the elite players on the Oilers certainly have stepped up and done their thing. And then it's that next wave of Evander Kane, who's off the charts right now, but Zach Hyman last night, the Nuge as well. And then I look at the Calgary side of the equation, not only that top line, and remember that top line, Johnny Gaudreau's line was the best line 5-on-5 in the National Hockey League, and they've been nowhere to be found. And then I thought the depth of the Calgary Flames was what was going to tip this in the Flames' favor. Like I predicted the Flames to win. And so I'm a little surprised that we are where we are in this thing. But really, when you look at the way it's played out, and I heard you talking about has it lived up to its billing, I think there have been some juicy storylines. And the fact that no lead seems safe, that part's great. But if it ends in 5, there's no way that it lived up to its billing. It's just that I don't think anybody predicted the Oilers were going to win it in 5. But I've been highly disappointed in the Flames depth guys. And then, come on, we watched Jacob Markstrom, a 2-time MVP here in Vancouver. But what did we always say when he was here working with Ian Clark? A rested Markstrom is a better Markstrom. Guys, he had to grind so heavily in that goalie battle in the first round with Jake Ottinger. Goes 7 games. There was overtimes in there. And then they turn around. And so it's 7 straight playoff starts in the Dallas series. And now you're 4 games deep here. And he got the 1 period off where they had the hook the other night. But he just looks completely out of sorts. He looks nothing like the guy that had 9 shutouts in the regular season and was so good for the Vancouver Canucks. So absolutely, it's been a huge difference in this series. You thought the goaltending might be an issue. I think we all thought more of what we saw last night with Mike Smith, but just really at a loss to describe what's going on with Jacob Markstrom other than he looks fatigued and run down and nowhere close to the top of his game.
Jeff, Scott Walker saying yesterday on Sportsnet 650 he's not a big fan of analytics, never has been. Bruce Boudreau hasn't been either. And you know what? There's some guys that have been in the game 20, 30 years that are having a tough. They're eye test guys. They love, judging a game on what they visually see. Is this it surprised you, that comment about, not a big analytics guy?
Yeah, it did. It's the year 2022. And for Scott Walker, and he doesn't work for the club anymore, so it's not like he's going to have an impact on the Vancouver Canucks here moving forward. But that's an ignorant comment. It is. There's no other way to look at that. And for him to say, show me a Stanley Cup winner that was an analytics team, every Stanley Cup team is like, analytics exist, whether you like them or not. They're out there. People are diving deep on the numbers. They're doing it more and more every day and every season. So, a little surprised to hear that from a guy who was working an NHL bench this year, has been an owner of a successful major junior hockey club. Yep. He may not have to like them, but to come out and suggest that there's no place in hockey for analytics, my goodness, that just seemed like a remarkable statement. And I like Bruce Boudreau. Sure, I mean, old school, we get it, but at the same time, he has talked about wanting to learn more, wanting to embrace it, that, he doesn't want to be seen as a guy that's having the game pass him by. And so he's talked about wanting to sit down with the Canucks ever-growing analytics department here in the offseason. And I do think that Bruce is willing to embrace it. And I do think at some level, whether it was simply looking at shots on goal or scoring chances, there are so many more categories now and things are termed a little bit differently. But I do think that Bruce Boudreau had an understanding of, the more that you've got the puck on your stick and the more that you've got the puck in their end of the ice, the better your chances of scoring and therefore winning. So, is there room for Bruce Boudreau to grow? Absolutely. And it certainly, we know now that he's not going to have Scott Walker there trying to pull him away from learning more about analytics as they apply to his hockey club.
Jeff, when you watch these playoffs, does it show you how far the Canucks are away? I just watched Colorado the other night, outskated the Blues. I watched the Oilers go up the ice, and, this new regime in Vancouver right off the bat said, we're not fast enough. Some of these teams are super fast.
Yeah, and, the Florida Panthers, the fact they flamed out the way they did, that surprised me a little bit. Again, my hockey pool's out the window because I stacked up on Florida Panthers. I bought in. I thought that they would be able to outscore their issues. And, I mean, I didn't know how the path was going to go for them in the playoffs running into the two-time champs, but that Tampa team is just so impressive the way they, strangled the Leafs in Game 7, and then the other night in Game 4, I know they got outplayed, but still, they find ways to grind out victories. It's not all about Stamkos and Kucherov racking up points and helping people win their hockey pools. It's what does it take to win, and, whether it's Ross Colton scoring a late goal or Nick Paul scoring twice against the Leafs, that Tampa team really has learned from past failures. And, guys, it's just incredible to me. There's all this talk about the best coaches in hockey and Coach of the Year, and the finalists are out. John Cooper has never been the Coach of the Year in the National Hockey League. Tampa is in its 6th conference final in the last 8 years. And so, I know that he has been blessed with an incredibly talented team, but you can't tell me that somewhere in his run, there hasn't been a year where he's had to figure some things out, has had to deal with injuries, has had to, soothe egos and massage egos and those types. He's been a finalist, but he's never won Coach of the Year. And he was going to be the coach of the Olympic team. I don't think there's any doubt he's the best coach in hockey. And yet, for whatever reason, when it comes to voting on an annual basis, John Cooper just gets no love. It's a real shame.
We threw this around yesterday. I agree with you on John, by the way, friend of the show. We threw this around yesterday, Jeff. Can you envision the Canucks, and obviously some people would have to be moved around, but can you envision them going after a Nazem Kadri or an Evander Kane?
Well, when you heard Jim Rutherford talking about sandpaper, I guess everybody's different definitions a little bit different, but man, both of those guys, the way that they are playing, and I'll say this, Donnie, when this question has come up before, when Evander Kane was a free agent, people have, should the Canucks take a run at him? And I've always said no. Too much baggage, just not worth it. I give Evander Kane a ton of credit here. He has lived up to his end of the bargain, took a cheap deal with the Edmonton Oilers, just wanted to play, a place to play, prove himself again. Is he going to cash in here in the offseason? Probably. Is there a team that's going to be willing to go long-term with him, or, you're just running the risk that eventually sort of those chickens are going to come back to roost at some point, that his history is going to catch up with him? I don't know that he'll be getting a long-term ticket, but I think that there's a team out there certainly that's going to see what he's done here in the playoffs and think, yeah, that's a guy that can help us. There should be a bunch of teams in the National Hockey League that think that. The Vancouver Canucks, with their cap crunch, I'm not sure that they can be one of them, but I will come back to Jim Rutherford's comment about sandpaper. I think is far more likely that the Canucks want that kind of sandpaper. Guys that can play, can produce, can play higher in their lineup, rather than just going out and trying to find a hired gun. I know Ryan Reeves has a job still and a role to play, and you saw him at the end of the game against Carolina last night, sort of being the sheriff out there. And Jim Rutherford's got a connection to Ryan Reeves from their time in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
But, I think that's what Jim Rutherford probably would like to see, is his own guys play with a little bit more sandpaper, and I think we touched on this last week. Vasily Podkolzin's going to grow into that role. Will Lockwood, when he stays healthy, and if he can be an everyday NHLer, he can bring some of that as well. I just think that there is room for a few other guys as well to just a little bit more grit in their game. So kind of curious to see where it goes here in the offseason. Do I think that Evander Kane and the Vancouver Canucks will be a fit? I don't, just for cost reasons, but man, Evander Kane, the fact that he has stuck to hockey here, there's been no hint of all the distractions that have, plagued him over the many years. He has been terrific. And I mean, how can you not think that this guy, he plays on McDavid's team, so he's probably not got a sniff at the Conn Smythe, but just the flat-out production that he's delivering for the Edmonton Oilers really has been impressive.
Is that your own bobblehead in the background there?
Yeah, it looks like a...
This guy?
Yeah.
Oh, the other side, yeah.
Yeah. It is. What's the story behind that?
I got it for a big round birthday number. I don't want you to zoom in, but the microphone, it's me holding a microphone. The microphone's for a radio station that a few of us once worked
for. Oh, okay, never mind. We'll move on from that, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
I may just knock him off the mantle here.
Surprised you haven't ripped that microphone out yet.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys.